Hi, it's Phil from Northern Accountants. I hope you're well. This is the second of the 5 videos that I promised you with regarding to the NA action plan to help us tackle the COVID-19 crisis in a way to get through this stronger and together. So this video is about budgets and ultimately cash flows. So we're going to talk through about the process of how to do it, because I think one of the things that's one of the stats that says quite alarming is that 95% of businesses don't have a cash flow and they don't have a budget, and of the 5% that do have those things, 90% don't use it or look at it once, which is when they sign it off. So there's very little point in that exercise. So I think most business operate without a budget and without a cash flow. That's certainly true in my experience, rightly or wrongly. I think it's wrongly, but you know, we're all busy, we all have things to do. So there's no real drama there at the moment, but I think because of the change in circumstances, it's now apparent that we do need this information. So I thought I'd do a quick video just to go through the process of putting these things together, because everyone understands the concepts of them, but when you actually sit down and think about how am I going to do it, it's not that straightforward. So this is just a step-by-step guide on how to do it. So the first thing we're going to do is work on the personal budgets. And there are 3 types of expenditure within your personal budgets. There's the needed expenditure, which are things like your rent, your mortgages, your water, your electric, your council tax, probably your internet if you've got kids like me. I'm pretty sure they'd rather have the water turned off than have the internet turned off. Then you've got your desired sort of expenditure, so it's your luxury items. So maybe the way you go out to eat and drink, and I'm going to include shopping in there as well, and particularly food shopping, because there's a whole range of areas where we can shop, and the price differentiation is unbelievable, and often the quality is just as good at the lower end of the scale as at the top end of the scale, and you know, so it is a consideration, which is why I've dropped it into a sort of luxury item. And then the third element is really your savings item, your savings element of the business, that's, you know, of your personal income, sorry. So they're the 3 things that make up your general expenditure within your business. Now obviously some people will start talking about debt and things like that, but I think most of that is going to fall within the needed category because it needs to be paid. So that's why I've not included that as a separate one. So what I think you need to do is download 3 months worth of bank statements and basically probably put them in an Excel document, and then I would align them up side by side so the months are running sequentially down one another, and then you can get the trend of your expenditure, so you can see on average how much your water bill is, you know, when your mortgage is coming out, you know, when what your average electric bill is. You can see your luxury expenditure, so you can cut that out, like where, you know, things that will have gone down, particular things like eating out and drinking in the pubs and things like that. So I think you can pull those sorts of things out, and what you'll do is you'll get a realistic personal budget if you was to maintain everything that you was, and obviously cut back on the things that you can't spend on, like I say, like the going out and stuff like that, and the fuel costs and things. So it's about being reasonable. And what that will give is that'll give us what we'll call our Thrive number. So that's nothing changes, we just carry on. So that's the income that we need to just carry on. Then what I want us to work out are 2 other numbers. One will be our provide number, which is basically the amount of money you need to get by comfortably without all the necessary luxuries. So you'll pull those things out. So you might change where you shop and all those sorts of things and bits like that, and that'll give let's call that the provide number. But you're still putting a bit of savings away as well, like that, because we don't really want to attack that if we don't have to. But it's basically cutting out all the unnecessary luxury. And then you're going to have your survive number, which is basically at the absolute bare minimum you need to survive this crisis. So we're going to have 3 numbers, and once we've got those 3 numbers, we understand what our demands are going to be on the business. So when we go on to build the business cash flow, we can factor those numbers in, and we can take out the thrive number and put the provide one in. And if it doesn't still work, we can take the provide out and put the survive in. So because the survive is the absolute minimum, and we need to do that, and we need to pay that first. So whatever budget you decide for your personal selves based on your future cash flow, you need to pay yourself first, because you're the ones making all the sacrifices in this. You're the ones who's having all the pressure put on you to keep the economy going, to keep businesses going, to keep jobs open, you know, to keep the doors open. This pressure's on you. If you're anything like me, it's not a 9-to-5 job. You are working late. You are working on a weekend. If you're not working, you're thinking about it. You know, you're thinking about others. So in this instance, you've got to make sure that you are right. and you are okay as a family. So that's the primary sort of function. So whatever budget we decide on, that's one of the things I would employ you to do first, is to take your money. So we've got your personal budget, so now we need to work out the business budget. And we're going to follow the same process, but instead of downloading bank statements, what we'll do is we'll go to your P&Ls, and basically we'll export it, we'll analyse it line by line, and we'll categorise your expenditure into needed, desired / luxury, and savings. And again, we can then go on and build our thrive, provide and survive numbers. So we've now got these effectively 6 budget numbers that we've got together, and now what we've got to do is put them together and then map that to our cash income to work out which of the 6 we can use, and that sort of thing. So excuse me. So basically what we've now got to do is we've got the 2 personal budgets and our cost budgets. We need to build those. We need to shelve those for one time because we're going to merge that into our income. So what we need to do is understand what our income is. So we're going to build 3 income projections. So we're going to build our Thrive income projection, which will be, so everything carries on as it did before, and this is where we're going to be. This is the best case scenario. So they're our success sort of areas. We're going to have our provide number, which is the most likely. So, and that's going to be difficult to produce because this is all based on guessing. And let's be honest, we've got no basis on which to make these educated estimates or guesses. It's purely guesswork. And then we're going to have our worst case scenario. So what happens if nobody pays, and so on and so forth, so we can understand where it is. So what we're looking to try to understand, the main number we're trying to understand is your cash burn. So how much is it costing you, how much are you burning in cash on a monthly basis, and how do we go then plug in that gap? So we've now got these 3 cash flow scenarios. So we've got our Thrive, our Survive and our Provide number. So effectively now we've got to apply our personal and business budgets to those numbers. So now there are 9 possible scenarios. So you can have your Thrive income with your Thrive business projections and your Thrive personal, and you go all the way to Survive from income all the way through. So there are multiple scenarios that are likely to be built and likely to occur. So what we need to then do is kind of whittle these down into the most likely. And we've got both extremes of the spectrum and find out what is the most likely to happen, and then that's going to be the budget we generally run with. And then going forward from a cash flow, when we put these together, we just need to review it on a daily basis. I'm a big believer that this has to be done daily because things are so subjective at the moment and so open to change. We need to be able to make quick decisions and understand the impact on the future when we've made these decisions. So I think once you've built this spreadsheet, and I will provide spreadsheets for both the budgets and for the cash flow, I've sent the cash flow out before, but I'll send it again with this video, then you've got a real chance at managing your cash accurately, or as accurately as possible. So one of the key decisions you're going to have to make is about, again, when you pay, how you pay yourself. And you've got 3 options around that. You've got your ad hoc opportunities. So if you need 500 quid this week, you put 500 quid in your bank account. If you need 200 next week, it's 200 quid in that bank account. And then you have your weekly. So if you need £2,000 a month, you might pay yourself £500 a week. Or you've got your monthly, which is I pay myself this amount, £2,000 now, and that's to last me for 4 weeks or however many all the month. My personal recommendation is that if you can, you pay yourself monthly, because effectively you then know that your personal budget is taken care of and it's one less thing to worry about. You can then focus on the business and rather than having to worry about you. But again, I am aware that you may have to tweak that depending on cash flows. But again, I do implore you to pay yourselves absolutely first, because like I said before, the pressure that you guys are under is profound, and you have to protect yourselves and your families. So once we've got the cash flows, and what we're likely to do, we've got a few options of things that we can do. So we've got obviously the VAT deferral option. In terms of that, we've got to factor that into our cash flow. There's time to pay discussions that we can get into with the revenue. You can look at the finance position that you've got. So it might be having to refinance some existing items to over a longer period to bring it down. It might be you find a new provider to get a better rate. You know, people are out there and are lending at the moment, so that's the one. The other thing to think about is the loans. You know, if we understand what our gap is in cash, the banks are lending money and they will plug the gap. So basically their brief now is, if you're here with £10,000 in the bank, by the time we come out the COVID virus, they'll lend you enough money to, assume it's affordable to repay it, they'll lend you enough money to make sure you still got £10,000 at the end. So again, they're there to compensate for the dip or the lost income. So that's another thing to think about, and we'll talk more about in more depth later on. And of course, the final one is probably insolvency. That's a place where nobody wants to be, but it is, in this time, it is a realistic thing that we might have to consider. So again, we have a fantastic partner here at Northern Accountants who I trust implicitly, and he is always available for advice, a shoulder to cry on, or to give you some direction and to give you the facts so you can make a decision. You know, there might not be facts that you like to hear, but at least you know what the situation is. And the other important thing about this is you can then control the insolvency. If you appoint the insolvency practitioner, then you're in control of the situation. If somebody else enforces the appointment of insolvency practitioner, you aren't going to get that kind of support because they're effectively not working for you. They're working for the person that put you into administration or liquidation. So again, some big things to think about on that point of view. Now, I know that's not ideal and not a great way to finish the video, but it is something that we do absolutely have to think about. So if you do have anything, any concerns or anything about in terms of liquidation, once you've done these cash flows and these projections, please do not hesitate to contact me. Everything is done in the strictest of confidence. No one would even know you've ever had this conversation. And to be fair, if you do put a company into liquidation, most people don't even know you've done that either, because of the way that it's now done, and there's no shame in it in whatsoever. So, you know, at the end of the day, what we've got to do is be realistic, is to be honest with ourselves, and not to let our ego and our pride potentially cause us more problems. So in a nutshell, that's how I would go about putting my personal budgets together and my cash flows and the structure behind it. I obviously can't give you a how-to guide on what to and what not to put in and things like that, because there's so many of you, so many variables, I can't do that. But I'm happy for our team to look over your cash flows projections, to talk to them. You've got access to your client managers at any time. If you need some support elsewhere, don't hesitate to contact me, and we're here to support in any way we can. So that's it for the budgets and cash flows. Tomorrow will all be about the tax opportunities that we've got. So there's a bit of planning that we can do there around that. So make sure you watch that one. Take care, stay safe, and look after all your families. Thank you.